Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and welcome to our Top Schools 2021 event. We're so happy to spend the morning with you and celebrate with all of you. Of course, we're also sad that we cannot celebrate together in person. The last time we were all together, if you remember, if you were there, we were at that beautiful ballroom at USC. For those of you in the Bay Area, we were in that beautiful ballroom at the Microsoft Theater. So although we do have sadness that we can't be in person together and touch and celebrate together in our bodies, we are really excited about the virtual event that we've put together to celebrate and honor all of you this morning. So my name is Hannah Gravette. I'm the Regional VP for Innovate Public Schools in Los Angeles, California. And our mission at Innovate is to ensure that all students, but especially low-income students and students of color, receive an excellent public education. We work toward that mission by first and mostly organizing and training parents to be powerful advocates for their children and to be effective, empowered partners in their child's school. But we also work through our schools team and our research team to identify those places where low-income kids of color are thriving. And we work to help spread those practices to other schools and school systems. And that piece of our mission is where this event, our Top Schools report and our Top Schools events, and all of you come into play. Every year in partnership with USC, we produce our Top Schools report, which recognizes schools in LA County and across the Bay Area that are closing opportunity gaps for low-income Latino and low-income Black students. Every one of you, everybody with us this morning in this Zoom has been on that list. And we are so grateful for all of you, the leaders and the staff at our top public schools for underserved students. You are providing low-income Black and low-income Latino students a safe, affirming, and rigorous place to learn. You are proving what is possible, what every school system should and could be doing. And you are a beacon of hope to so many parents and so many schools that also believe in our shared vision. We see you, we appreciate you, we need you, and we are amazed by the incredible work and sacrifices you are making for our kids. I think it also goes without saying that this has been a hard couple of years. So today we did want to do things a little bit differently. Rather than getting technical and looking at data and sharing practices with each other, we want this morning to just be about you, all of you as human living people. You also happen to be amazing school leaders and educators, but we want to pour into your person today. And so we've arranged an incredible guest speaker, Maree Brown, who is going to help all of us remember that we are human, how to love our human selves, how to give grace and rest and replenishment to our human bodies and selves. Also, today is about our commitment, Innovate's commitment, to make sure that you know you are not alone. It is going to be challenging and difficult to recover from this pandemic. But one, we want you to know that you have each other that's in this space, the leaders and educators in schools that have already been identified as amazing places. But also we hope to use some time this morning to share with you and renew our commitment and share some ways that Innovate is planning to work to ensure that all of our communities and community leaders are surrounding you, our schools, our students, and our educators with support as we all work together to recover from the pandemic. So again, thank you so much for making time to be here, but also thank you, of course, for all the amazing work you do in our communities and for our kids and families. I'm going to close with just a few quick norms for how we want to spend our time together this morning. So the first and the most important one is we want you to relax and enjoy. So I hope you're wearing something comfortable as you're listening and as we're talking together this morning. Go and grab some champagne if you've got it from your kitchen, or even some wine. I know it's the morning, but you deserve to celebrate yourself. So please make yourself comfortable, get yourself or chocolate, whatever you need, whatever it takes to feel celebrated. And then second, we do ask that you don't record the time together. We're going to be recording pieces of this, and we promise to share highlights and snippets from the event. And then we're going to be sharing some videos during the event, and we're going to share those with you as well. So we'll share all the materials from this morning with all of you. And then last, we really want you, I know it's hard with virtual spaces, but we've all gotten better at it. We really want you to connect with each other, both in the chat throughout the event, but also online. So anytime you hear something that's exciting, something you're excited about, something that resonates with you, please call it out in the chat, send it out to your colleagues and friends in this virtual space, but then also call it out on your social channels. So we're going to be using a hashtag this morning, replenished. It's replenish ED, replenished, because that's the theme for our event today. So please don't forget to use the hashtag and call out all the amazing, exciting things you hear or anything that you really want to commit to or that resonates with you. And with that, I'm going to hand it over. Again, thank you so much for being here. We're excited. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Jenny.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jenny Perla. I'm Associate Director of Research and Policy with Innovate Public Schools. It's so great to be with you this morning. I am honored to introduce one of our top schools that we had the privilege to learn from this year. Despite the challenges that distance learning brought, McKinley Elementary in Compton Unified remained committed to closing opportunity gaps for low-income Black and Latino students by bringing the arts to their students. McKinley, a kindergarten through 8th grade school, fully integrates the arts in daily instruction through music, visual arts, dance, and theater instruction. They partner with Turnaround Arts California, who provides coaching and resources to develop high-quality integrated arts education. By partnering with Turnaround Arts California, McKinley is able to expand their capacity and grow and learn from mentor artists and a network of other schools dedicated to the arts. McKinley was featured on our top schools list in 2019 and 2020, and was one of 13 California elementary schools selected for the California Exemplary Arts Education Award. Please enjoy this short video that spotlights their successful partnership with Turnaround Arts California and how they have brought high-quality integrated arts education to their students.
Nobody knows the job you do until you do it. I didn't know this job until I stepped in it, and now I got my jungle boots on and I'm knee deep in it.
Good morning.
My name is Monique Pugh. I'm a principal at McKinley Elementary School in Compton, a proud principal.
Line up, guys.
The school is full of energy. The school is nurturing. It's like family. It's the best place in Compton to be. The previous principal was invested in seeing how can we support student achievement? What will help these students retain the content that they're learning? And she realized that that could be achieved through the arts.
The integration of the arts completely transformed the entire culture of the school. They gave the students identity. It touched on what they loved and where they were talented.
I've seen their confidence rise. I've seen their sense of self become more clear. We needed someone that could deconstruct those art standards for us and then show us how to integrate it with our Common Core standards. And that's what our partnership with Turnaround Arts has done. They've been a source of mentorship. They've been a source of professional learning communities, of trainings.
And the partnership has really evolved since then. They've built teacher leadership and a shared vision for what an arts-rich school can be. They've increased attendance, decreased behavioral referrals, increased learning through the arts.
Prior to Turnaround Arts, we were doing the arts. The partnership just really strengthened us because we already had that goal.
With our partnership with Turnaround Arts, they brought in direction and focus. So the raw talent was here, but they gave us a platform.
Our vision is that we want our students to achieve at high levels, not only academically, but socially and emotionally as well. And I think that without Turnaround Arts, if we didn't have them, it leaves a gaping hole, it leaves a deficit.
Schools that partner with outside organizations have opportunities to bring in new expertise and new ways of thinking to their team. Often there are creative ways to get at the outcomes that educators are already looking for.
The success lies in your ability to be honest, to be transparent, to say what you need.
At McKinley, we've really seen the potential of rich partnerships, of partnerships that invest deeply in shared outcomes for students.
Good morning, muy buenos días. Thank you again to McKinley Elementary and Turnaround Arts, California, for all your hard work and your dedication, for showing us what successful partnership looks like. Make sure to check out our latest blog, by the way, for all of our participants, linked in the chat, with tips on how your school can leverage partnerships with community-based organizations such as McKinley. Thank you again. Buenos dias, good morning. My name is Michelle Vilchez, and I am the very proud daughter of immigrant parents and a proud parent, a mother of 4 children, 4 brown children. I also have the distinct pleasure of serving as co-CEO at Innovate in partnership with my partner co-CEO, Matt Hammer, founder and co-CEO. Today, I'm here before you because I have the distinct honor of introducing our keynote speaker. Our keynote speaker is writer in residence at the Emergent Strategy Ideation Institute, the author of Grievers, the first novella in a trilogy on Black Dawn imprint, holding change the way of emergent strategy facilitation and mediation. We Will Not Cancel Us, and Other Dreams of Transformative Justice, Pleasure Activism, The Politics of Feeling Good, Emergent Strategy, Shaping Change, Changing Worlds, and the co-editor of Octavia's Brood, Science Fiction from Social Justice Movements, and How to Get Stupid White Men Out of the Office. She's the co-host of How to Survive the End of the World, Octavia's Parables, and Emergent Strategy podcast. She's rooted in Detroit and has profoundly changed the way that we here at Innovate view change, impact, and growth. I'm so very excited to introduce to you Adrienne Maree Brown.
Hi. I think y'all see me now. Hi, it's me. Hi, everyone. It's Adrienne. I am really grateful to be with you all today. Teachers are my favorite. My fiance is actually a first grade teacher, and I got to go in and be part of her class birthday yesterday and just be with these babies. And I'm really grateful to be with you all here today. And I start my days off, one of my self-care practices is starting my days off with a tarot pull. And today I asked, what are y'all sitting in? Like, what is the energy that the teachers I'm about to talk to are holding? And the card that I pulled was depletion. I don't know if you can see this, depletion. It's a bunch of beached whales. And it says, beached whales lie ashore on gray sands under dull skies. There's no vitality, no light, little water or life in the landscape. And this card is a caution against burnout and emotional depletion. Your heart must have the nourishment and attention it needs, or a severe toll will be taken. You are worthy of love and deserve to be surrounded with those who love and inspire you, taking time daily for your emotional well-being. It is a top priority for you to nurture yourself and pay attention to your feelings so that you may realize your value in the world. And I often don't share the tarot cards I pull for a group before I talk to them, but that one was so like ding ding, based on what I had heard from you all that you're feeling. So the first thing I want to do with you is just take a moment and get here, ground in this moment right now. So wherever you are, I invite you to Place your feet on the ground, or place your butt more solidly in your chair. If you're sitting down, standing up, really let your shoulders kind of fall back and down. Let your breath deepen in. Let yourself inhale such that you fill up all your lungs, and exhale so that you let everything go out of you. Notice that you're here on purpose. You could be anywhere right now, but this is designed to help you. This is a space just for you. So you might want to go ahead and give yourself a little accolade for being here and for showing up for something that is for you, an investment in you. Yeah, wiggle yourself out. Notice if your body needs anything. And as I'm talking, and for the rest of your life, listen to your body, make the adjustments your body needs. I'm going to share with you some ideas from Emergent Strategy, which is a worldview that I observed, looking at the natural world and seeing how almost every other species is figuring out how to sustain itself and sustain its relationships. And humans are really struggling with this sustaining work, that we are in these systems that are constantly driving us into burnout, driving us into exhaustion. In the face of uncertainty, we panic and try to control. And so I want to invite you into this worldview with me. And one of the aspects of it is, how do we get in right relationship with change? If change is constant, which we know it is, how do we get in the right relationship with it? And if we're teachers who are holding rooms full of students, how do we help them get in right relationship with constantly changing conditions? And how do we self-heal and give ourselves self-care inside of all the uncertainty? And when we are so overextended, many of us were overextended before this pandemic even began. And in this process, this last year and a half, it's been extending and extending and extending further and further, watching people fall away from exhaustion, from sickness. And really, how do we do this? How do we shift everything? The first thing I want to offer is that we have to acknowledge that this is an overwhelming time. It's not just you. You're not uniquely exhausted. And there's this meme going around. It's like, the therapist, what do you say? The therapist is like, it's absolutely normal to struggle with being productive during a global pandemic. And, the person who's in the me role is like, right, absolutely. The therapist is like, but not you though, right? And it's like, yeah, not me though. That I see this in all of my comrades and all of my friends, that we understand that other people are tired. We really struggle with our own exhaustion. We understand that other people need care. We really struggle to give it to ourselves and to make the adaptations to attend to ourselves. But it's actually everyone who needs to attend to themselves right now at every level of every system, including those that are meant to support others. And on a very practical scale, we literally have less people than we had a year and a half ago in the world, less people in this country, less people able to work. And some of that is because of COVID, right? We are grieving those that we have lost from COVID, but there's also those who are lost because they are grieving, right? They are unable to function. They are taking care of things they didn't expect to. They're caretaking for the sick. They're caretaking for children who were left behind from those who were lost. We are restructuring our whole society without actually turning and naming it and saying families are changing, structures are changing, and of course, then schools are changing. It's a fractal system. It's what we talk about in science. There's this beautiful concept of fractals where the smallest patterns actually reverberate out into the largest patterns. You'll see it on something simple like a fern or broccoli or delta streams, that the same thing happens with our blood moving through our body. It looks just like rivers moving through the delta. So that fractal thing is happening to us exactly in these systems. We are exhausted and changing and burning out, and so is everything around us. So first, normalizing that and letting it in. You are not uniquely dysfunctional. It's all dysfunctional, it's all changing. And burnout looks different in different bodies, in different shapes. So for some of us, we move towards hyperproduction. I will I will overperform. I'll get it all done. I'll make it all perfect. It'll be like better than it ever was. I'll not cover myself and I'll cover everyone else, right? That's my shape. So I will just be like so perfect and so doing it all. And for some of us, we go numb. We feel like I don't even want to get out of bed. I can't even get out of bed. Don't want to explain to anyone what's going on. I'm tired all the time and I can't ever get enough sleep no matter what I do, right? For some of us, burnout looks like anger. Like the fuse is so short and it's so hard to have patience, have compassion, have an extension towards anyone else's mistakes in their humanity. We're just angry. We're angry that someone's been taking from us. We're angry that things are happening this way. You have probably the most data about your kind of burnout. So notice, like, what are the signs, right? Take a moment and say, what are the signs that I can use, the signposts, the red flags that I can look around and say, I'm on my edge, right? I'm past my edge. And really have some compassion, really noticing, like even turning and noticing those signs is a way of being in right relationship with change, in a better relationship with your body, and like, oh, you know, for me, I notice when my temper is short, that I'm like, I'm overextended and I've been trying to do perfect, but perfect is not possible. Drop back in, right? If I can bring myself back into that center of myself, I can have more capacity. So notice for yourself, take a moment. And we're in a period of massive adaptation. And if everything is changing, then you also need to change. And there's some really brilliant wisdom on this. Gloria Anzaldúa, who wrote this bridge called My Back, she said, if I change myself, I change the world. And my mentor, Grace Lee Boggs, was a Chinese American activist in Detroit. She taught that we must transform ourselves to transform the world. So in all of this adaptation, sometimes we forget that we are that first point of change. We are that front line of this systemic change. This is all not just happening to us and we have no agency. Actually, we, in the transformations we make in ourselves and in our relationships, are making more possible in this adaptation. So what adaptations can you make individually, collectively, in the school culture, in your home expectations, that can actually make life not just more manageable, but more joyful, more easeful? I will say again, you know, I've been like, everything has to be so perfect. One of the adaptations I've had to make is letting a little bit of mess accumulate. I'm a Virgo, oldest child. I do not like a little mess accumulating. But in our home, you know, my partner's a working teacher. I'm a working writer. Sometimes it's like, it just has to be a little cluttered. It like has to be a little bit, and that's okay. We're all okay. We're going through a global pandemic and the laundry has built up. It's okay. And there's something about that adaptation of letting imperfection have a little bit more space in my home that actually makes it possible to get through the day with a little bit more joy and ease. By not doing the laundry, I had time to take a bath, right? It's really like, you know, time is this non-linear, non-cyclical thing. And we live in these finite things. We have to face our mortality. There is like limited hours in a day. So there is a rearrangement of it in that adaptation that can actually really help. What needs to change for you to stay in as a teacher, to stay in the relationships you're in, to stay in your body, to stay in life, right? What are the small adaptations that you can make? Another aspect of emergent strategy, so we have the fractals, we have adaptation. I'm just slipping it in. Another one is creating more possibilities. How do we create more possibilities for ourselves and for our students? So one of the things also that Grace Lee Boggs said was, when people are dropping out, when students are dropping out from schools, they're actually walking out, right? There's something about the school that's not serving their needs. And when they may or may not be able to express that, then there's other ways that they opt out. Sometimes you've seen this before. Students can opt out in the room, or they can opt out on the Zoom if it's long distance, or they can opt out, like physically stop coming in. I think this is also happening for teachers, that there are ways that people are quitting their jobs, reaching the end, opting out. And it's because there's a systemic level of change that's also needed. The current structures of education, the current standards of education were designed to serve a capitalist system in which everyone is valued by what they can produce, what they can produce, what they can produce, how well they can fit into the cogs of a machine that is already working, find jobs that serve someone else's billionaire dreams, right? And if society has to change, if human society has to change so that we can be in a different relationship with each other and the earth, then our education systems also have to change. Those are big adaptations for humans to make in this phase. So right now, it all feels like a crisis. And I don't know about you, but I'm like, it feels like on a daily basis, each day holds as many crises as I used to think were happening in 3 to 6 months. And my friend Angel Kyoto Williams, who's a Black Buddhist teacher, she talks about how we have more technology and more awareness of all the struggles and crises that are happening concurrently than we've ever had, but we haven't necessarily done the spiritual work to hold all of that knowing, all of that data, all of that news. We have a 24-hour news cycle, but we don't have a 24-hour replenishment cycle. So how, when we're inside that constant crisis, how do we create opportunities for perhaps subversive cultural shifts that could happen in our lives, in our homes, in our classrooms that make it more sustainable for us, more sustainable for our students, that help us shift away from competing against each other for scarce resources to collaborating together to generate enough for all of us, right? That's the move right now. How do we do that in ourselves and with our students? I think the answer is almost always community. And I say that all the time. I'm like, community is the answer. Community is the answer. And how do we practice community? In emergent strategy, I say we have to get interdependent and decentralized. We have to learn how to be in a relationship where we're able to lean on each other in meaningful ways, but also decentralized, allow power and decisions to happen in more places. This is important, especially with our pandemic babies, because they're not like other kids. These are kids who are like, I had to be home. I had to figure it out with my parents. I know more about what's going on. I understand more about going to the bathroom by myself or doing other things that I need to do to take care of myself. So where can you strengthen the relationship you have with your students? Where can you allow them to help hold what's happening in the classroom, empower them to be co-directors of what was happening, the energy in the space? Where can you strengthen the relationship you have with your other teammates? How can you let them see your needs and support you? How can you really hear what their needs are and support them? How do you let it be not transactional, but mutual, right? That people know their humanity is also held in this space. It's not just the work, right? None of us can hold this alone. It's literally too much. There was a tweet that was going around a while ago. Someone said, we all need more than anyone has to give. And when I heard that, I was just like, oh, that's what's happening. That in the past, I would always be like, well, someone's got it. Like if I'm going through it, someone else has it. Right now, no one really has it. We all have to then generate it together, and community is the answer. Where can you ask for help and mutuality? And also, where can you share? The vision for our classroom is to have ease and peacefulness. The vision for our classroom is to attend to ourselves. Is there a quiet space in the classroom where students can go and just turn inward, right? That's what my sweetheart has, a turtle corner for her little turtles to go and get in their shell and like come back out. I'm really moved by this idea that we in community can actually make enough room for everyone to take those moments to restore and replenish. Another aspect of this work is that it's nonlinear and it's iterative. It's not just moving in one direction. So in this period of time, what we're facing is not something that was planned out necessarily. It's the accumulation of practices that are not in alignment with life. Practices of violating the earth, practices of an unjust economy, practices of developing minds without also attending to the body and the spirit of those beings. In the accumulation, we find dis-ease and we find injustice. So humans change in cycles, and you can see it if you look at how we move. We keep, they say history repeats itself, but we are different each time in that repetition. And the difference is what we're practicing. What are we evolving? So part of what might have you exhausted right now is that you're trying to succeed in an outdated belief or paradigm of what education even is. If education is pointing us toward continued injustice, it's exhausting to participate in that. How can you pivot towards freedom? If you're moving towards inequality, obedience, and conformity, that can be very exhausting. How instead can you open towards biodiversity, creativity, evolution? Even noticing in yourself what changes, what's iterating, what's something you used to believe that you now understand differently. Can you let that show up in your choices and your decision making? What we practice or iterate sets the pattern, sets new patterns, right? And if we want a pattern of not having burnout in ourselves and in our students, then we actually have to be in new practices that intervene on the patterns that lead toward burnout. One of those patterns, one of the core practices, I think, is resetting the pattern towards abolition. And I talk about abolition all the time. What I mean is ending the systems of slavery that are currently manifested as incarceration and punishment, right? So it's moving from a punitive culture to an accountability culture. And I bring this up with you all particularly because I believe that schools are one of the core places where we learn about justice. Are we telling on each other, getting each other punished, going to detention, suspension, expulsion? Are we being isolated out of community, or are we turning and figuring out how to address harms that happen, turn and face each other, be humans together in it? Schools that are shifting away from punishing students in ways that flow along the lines of classism and racism can instead turn and take accountability for the white supremacy culture that can create unfair conditions for many of our students. I really want to recommend, there's papers from Janine Donovage, and I'll pass the name on to your team, but she's written about brave community in the classroom. And it helps to not just feel guilty when systems of oppression show up in the classroom and in our communities, but to be brave about the shifts we need. Because it takes bravery and courage to change in ways that value your life and the life of your students. And in all of that, right, we are breaking massive systems, like what someone experiences in this given moment as an opportunity of how they move through conflict might transform what they do in a conflict in their relationship in 20 years, right? That's one of the gifts of teaching, is you actually plant the seeds of new culture, plant the seeds of new ways of being in those students here and now. So those are kind of the 6 elements of immersion strategy. Again, it's the fractals, the adaptation, creating more possibilities, interdependence and decentralization, nonlinearity and iteration, and then this piece around abolition, which is transformative justice instead of punitive justice. How do we get to the root of the harm and actually transform those conditions? Your own needs for healing and care might actually show up in any of those places that I named. The most healing thing for you right now might be to have your team turn and face how racism shows up, because it is exhausting to have it unaddressed and unheld. So maybe that's what you need to get skilled at, and your burnout would actually decrease if you didn't have to navigate microaggressions in the school, right? Or the most healing thing might be trying alternatives to punishment, that you create new patterns in your classroom for what people can do when they're in conflict or when harm happens. It might be encouraging the humanity of your students, making room for your grief and their grief and uncertainty alongside yours. Maybe you create a space in the room where people can honor those they've lost, right? I can't imagine a classroom. I never had that, and I know I need that. Every day, I light candles on my space that I have for my ancestors. I light that because I know that there's so much grief that I need to hold and manage and flow through me all the time. And if I tuck it away, it builds into harm that shows up in my body. My back will go out, my knee will go out. It's grief. It's unprocessed grief, right? And our bodies hold what we don't turn and face. and they hold it until we turn and face it, and they act up until we turn and face it. So really figuring out, can I make room for my grief, for my uncertainty, for my fear? Can I make room for that to happen in my students? It might be that you need to ask for help and to let it in. You know, it's one thing to be like, I need help, I'm overwhelmed. For some of us, the hardest thing is when people actually offer the help. Now, I'm always saying like, I need help. And then my partner will be like, okay, can I pick that up for you? No, I got it. You know, really noticing, oh, this is what help looks like when it shows up. How can I receive it and soften into it? And remember, community is always the answer, right? Really opening to that idea that there might be someone who can do the thing you need, or can at least relieve you some. You might need some more relationship building in your life with close friends, with loved ones, with your students. It might be some games, you know, like things are so serious. It's like, can you bring play and games and joy into it? You might need to leave work at school in ways that you haven't in the past. You know, create rituals for yourself to decompress at home, turn off social media, read a book instead, or cook a meal for yourself. Order a meal for yourself if that's your bag. You might need structured decompression, calls with friends who know what you're in, where you could just name, here's what was hard about my day, here's what I'm proud of, here's what I need. It might be boundaries. My friend Prentice Hemphill offered this quote. I'm actually going to share two quotes from Prentice. One is, boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and myself simultaneously. And I love that reframe of boundaries, that it's not about pushing someone away, and it's not about harming someone, but it's actually about love, loving yourself and loving the other. And Prentice also offered that perfectionism is a commitment to perpetual self-doubt. And being in that self-doubt place is exhausting. So perfectionism is a commitment to perpetual self-doubt. Relinquishing that, we can be in the experiment of life. You might have to experiment with the boundaries, right? I need to not talk to certain people during the weekday. It's too stressful in addition to everything else I'm doing. I also want to say it might just be rest, right? A lot of us are burnt out because sleep is hard, and sleeping in these conditions can be hard. So how do you actually protect your sleep? How do you treat your sleep like the precious resource it is? How do you treat yourself like the precious resource you are? I want to make sure that that's something that you walk away from this hearing. You are precious. Teachers are precious. Treat yourself that way. Your mind is shaping the future, right, of your students' lives, of what they think is possible. Your body is modeling balance and health and care for your students. You can't self-sacrifice and overwork and think that they're not picking up on that and thinking that's the way, right? So also being like, the more I care for myself, the more I am creating a culture of care in the entire space here. Tell your schools what you need in order to stay, and work together to shift the culture in order to make it possible. And administrators, really listen, right? Really hear that there's a shortage. So that means that those who are there are so much more precious than ever before, and they need to be treated as such. I want to name a couple more. You know, I named Grace, and I talked about Gloria Anzaldúa. I also want to name my friend Makani Themba. She says all the time, we are a millisecond from freedom. And when we talk about it, it's not a millisecond like in time, but a lot of it's a millisecond in our belief. That if we believe that the conditions will never change, they never will. And the moment we really click into the idea that they can, you know, we're no longer beached whales on someone else's surface in failure. We are whales that are swimming through a vast ocean of our own imagining. That's where we want to be. I also want to offer that Tony Cade Bombara said, the role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible. And I really think the role of teachers is to make the future irresistible for ourselves and for our students. We need to be inspired and inspirable, right? And that comes from a place of being resourced, being well rested. Again, it may not be the best sleep you've ever had in your life. We are in the middle of a global pandemic. But being really adaptive about here's what I actually need in order to get a good night's rest. Here's the amount of water I need in my body to be hydrated. Here's the basic things that my humanness needs. Here's what I need as a fractal of this system. Each one of us that makes those choices to be as healthy and as whole and as connected and as loving and as honest and as human as we can be in this time creates more possibilities for the whole. Octavia E. Butler was a Black science fiction writer who most of my work is in some way related to or inspired by. She said, all that you touch, you change, and all that you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. I ask you to consider that all the burnout and the exhaustion is simply a sign that a change is needed and that you can reach out and touch that change and you can actually create that change. So what change is it that you actually need? I want to invite everyone just to take a moment now, close your eyes and really ask yourself that question. What is one change, one adaptation that would actually increase my life force, lessen my stress, help me breathe more deeply, help me listen to my body? What is one thing that I could actually shift to give myself a deeper breath? There's something I want to share with you. It's a quote that I have said before, but you can repeat it after me if you want to. I am a microcosm of all the possible liberation, all the justice, pleasure, and honesty in the entire universe. And I act accordingly. Thank you so much for having me today. I hope this was of use to your lives. I hope it's of use to your students. I hope that you feel a little bit more ease in your system coming out of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adrienne Maree Brown, for that message. I think if all of you could take a second to put in the chat the one word or the one emotion that you're going to take with you after hearing that, I would love to see what that is. I think for me, what really struck me deep was this idea of renewing my definition of community. I love this idea of an interdependent, decentralized, and generative space, and to define community that way will help me, I think, reorient of what I'm building and what I'm thinking about community going forward. So thank you so much. Now I am very excited, very honored to introduce all of you to another amazing individual, Judith Larson. She's one of our beloved parent leaders who is building a beautiful community around herself and in partnership with other parents in Southeast LA. They're building a community of parents that are committed to work with the schools in their community to transform and change the communities inside those schools to become places where their children will thrive. Judith is going to talk with all of us about some of the work and introduce us to some of the work that that Innovate's parent leaders have been doing across the state to demand many, many more resources, but also many more kinds and types and creative solutions and supports for students and the schools in our community as we start to work together to build a whole new world, whole new structures, with this amazing opportunity that the pandemic has introduced for us. So Judith, please come and talk to us.
Thank you, Hannah, for that nice introduction. Good morning. Yes, I'm Judith. I'm a parent leader from Sila, a very proud mom of a 8th grader girl. So after school closed back in March of 2020, it became clear to us that schools couldn't resolve this crisis on their own. But we saw community-based organizations like YNC step in many ways to our communities to support students and us families in many ways. Our kids deserve a full academic and social emotional recovery. So we launched the After School Recovery Campaign with more than 400 parents of color from across the state back in January to ensure that all our students, especially those most impacted by the pandemic, have access to after-school learning and summer enrichment opportunities to help them fully recover from the pandemic. This video documents our journey and that what we accomplished. We hope that you can join us this year to continue the fight for equitable access to expand learning opportunities. Thank you very much to all for being here today.
The past year brought a crisis that rippled change across the world.
From lockdown cities, closed businesses, and empty classrooms,
We saw the spread of the virus close schools in our communities and left many kids without access to an education.
many families struggle with poor internet service, little access to teachers, and prolonged isolation. Disparities grew.
Este año, debido a la situación difícil,
pero necesitamos más apoyo, más ayuda en todo.
Estas clases a la distancia no están funcionando.
No está a nuestro alcance, necesitamos ayuda.
Students needed more learning time, individualized academic support, and much more social-emotional support.
It was also clear that schools couldn't do this alone.
All hands on deck were needed from local schools, community organizations, and state lawmakers to work together to make sure low-income students of color had what they need to thrive.
Innovate parents who were organizing around distant learning in Los Angeles and throughout the Bay Area joined forces to demand support and targeted resources for their families and students.
Innovate parents began meeting with elected officials, schools, counties, and nonprofit leaders to discuss solutions to help their students fully recover. And our statewide after-school recovery campaign was born.
This campaign aims to ensure that all students, especially those most impacted by the pandemic, have access to the after-school and summer learning opportunities they need.
After organizing for months, our parents held a statewide budget town hall with elected officials and created a space for those most impacted by the pandemic to share their educational recovery priorities with California state legislators.
They listen. Now that the California budget is passed and in motion, we celebrate our wins for families.
This year's budget provides $5 billion over the next 5 years for after-school and summer learning for all students.
It dedicates millions of dollars to support youth mental health across the state.
And it increased funding for existing after-school programs to boost support for the most impacted kids. We celebrate these wins, but there's still more work to do to ensure this historic funding reaches families in our communities. We implore school leaders, local education policymakers, and community organizations to collaborate on the expanded Learning Opportunities Program to ensure that these funds fulfill their promise of a full academic, social, and emotional recovery.
One year ago, we engaged with many of you to inform of our ask of state legislators in this campaign. What we heard loud and clear was that you needed funding to come over multiple years. We are proud that our advocacy work resulted with 5 years of this funding. Districts will receive $5 billion for expanded learning opportunities over the next 5 years. And now we want to hear from you again. We have a quick poll for all of you to fill out as we transition to our closing. My name is Madrigal. I am a proud mother of 2 brown children and an educator. I am privileged and honored to be here today with all of you top school leaders. And more than anything, I love Adrienne Marie Brown, and I needed her words today to fill my bucket. In the chat, put one action you're going to take this week to replenish. Share what you're going to do via Twitter and use the hashtag Replenish ED, Replenish. We are so grateful you joined us today. We will be following up with emails to share opportunities to work alongside parent leaders to ensure additional resources continue to be made available to support the students and schools most impacted by the pandemic, that they have a full academic and social emotional recovery. Have a beautiful weekend, and remember, pause, reflect, and replenish. Thank you again for being here. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Very good.